Okay, good morning all of you. Any questions? Let me start presenting. Yesterday I sent you this assignment 2, okay, and it actually has some overlap in the sense whatever we covered before this starting this finite element method, like 2-node finite element method, whatever we covered, and that those some problems are also there in here, so please go through it. And these are simple mathematical problems. You need to go back to your mathematics, and if required, okay, try to solve this. Any missing information, if any missing information is there, please let me know. I'll provide that. Please start solving these problems. All these problems you should be able to solve using whatever we covered so far. Okay. Anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll proceed. Have any questions? Okay. So let me go to the topic where we stopped in the last class. So we were discussing about analysis of 2D trusses, plane truss analysis. So you start with it's basically a one-dimensional problem, except that the bar is inclined with respect to the global axis. Because of that inclination with respect to the global axis, element equations for this bar elements are going to get modified. And we discussed in the last class how these element equations gets modified. In the local coordinate system, element equations remains the same. So that is what is written here. Since we are saying these equations are valid in the local coordinate system, they are denoted with KL DL is equal to RL. So how these equations are going to get transformed when I look the same bar in the global coordinate system, how these equations gets modified when I look the same bar in the global coordinate system. So this local displacements d1, d2 at each of the nodes, node 1 local displacement at node 1 d1, local displacement at node 2 d2, they get resolved into u1 u2, sorry, u1 v1, they get resolved into u1 v1. What is the relationship between d1 and u1 v1? That all comes from simple this one, taking the resolving this d1 along x-axis and along y-axis. Okay, global x-axis, global y-axis. Similarly, at node 2, local displacement is d2. How it gets resolved into u2 and v2. Similarly, force at node 1 p1, it's how it's going to get resolved into f1x, f1y. P2, how it gets resolved into f2x, f2y. These are all actually simple trigonometric relations, and you need to go back and see the basics. If you have two coordinate systems, let's say local coordinate system denoted with small x, small y, global coordinate system denoted with capital X, capital Y, and the local coordinate system is at an angle, or local x-axis is inclined at an angle with respect to the global x-axis by this angle alpha. It's inclined at an angle alpha measured in the counterclockwise direction. Please note that whatever whatever is mentioned, you need to strictly pay attention to that. So measured in the counterclockwise direction. Please note that this local x-axis is shown as though it is pointing in this direction. How it is shown? It is pointing in this direction. If you number this as node 1, if you number this as node 1, this as node 2, bar element is going from node 1 to node 2. So the direction of x-axis, this local x-axis is in the direction which is shown. Okay. If you reverse the node numbering, let's say this is node 1, this is node 2, then local x-axis is going to point in the opposite direction. That you need to keep in mind. And that is going to make a difference on how you are going to get this alpha. Alpha is angle between local x-axis and global x-axis measured in the counterclockwise direction. That you have to be careful. Okay. If you want to get a feel for it, whatever example problem that is that we discussed, which I'm going to go through once again in today's class, you reverse, you change the node numbers and see how if you are not careful, you are going to get absurd results. Okay, you are going to get some results which are not going to make any sense. So some of these things you learn when you do some experiments in this on your own. Even if I tell you many times, you may not be able to experience, but you just try that kind of thing if you really want to learn the subject properly. So you should be careful what node number you are calling as node 1, what node you are calling as node 2. Which node you are calling as node 1, which node you are calling as node 2 in the local coordinate system, that you need to be very careful. So once you get this in the local coordinate system, this is the element equation, how it get transformed into the global coordinate system, and you look in the global coordinate system, how it get transformed. The relation is developed based on the coordinate transformation. If you have two coordinate axes, two coordinate systems, small x, small y, capital X, capital Y, local coordinate system, global coordinate system, with the local x-axis being at an angle alpha with respect to the global x-axis, measured in the counterclockwise direction. Then you need to go back to your high school mathematics. You have simple transformation relation. Okay, small x, small y, how it is related to capital X, capital Y. And please note that here these are called direction cosines. These are called direction cosines. And when we go to 3D trusses, we'll slide, or you can now itself you can make a note here. This angle cos alpha is nothing but, or this is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis and global x-axis. This is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis, global x-axis. Okay, make a note of it. And this is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis and global y-axis. Okay, let me show you if it's not clear to you. This is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis. You can see here. Look at this. We are in this row. So look at this one. So this is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis, global x-axis. This is cosine of angle between local x-axis, global y-axis. But it is written sine alpha, whereas I am saying it is angle between local x-axis and global y-axis. If it is not clear to you, let me go back to this figure and show you. So what I am saying is that location in that matrix, whatever quantity is there in location, first row, second column, that is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis and global y-axis. What is the angle between local x-axis, global y-axis? What is the angle between local x-axis, global y-axis? One of you please tell me.
90 minus alpha.
Sin
90
alpha.
minus.
Okay, 90 minus alpha. Now what did I mention? Cosine of 90 minus alpha, which is nothing but sine alpha. Which is nothing but sine alpha. And what about this location? This location is nothing but cosine of angle between local y-axis and global y-axis. Cosine of angle between local y-axis, global y-axis. So let's see what is that. Cosine of angle between local y-axis, global y-axis. It is, if this is alpha, this is also going to be, alpha. Or 90, it's going to be, if this is alpha, this is 90 degrees, angle between local x-axis and local y-axis is 90, okay? Local x-axis, local y-axis is 90, and you are measuring the angle in counterclockwise direction. You are measuring, or it's going to be, let me go back and show you. Cosine of angle between local y-axis and global y-axis. So if this is alpha, angle between x-axis and y-axis is 90 degrees. Okay. And then what is going to be angle between local y-axis and global y-axis? What is that angle going to be?
Alpha.
And alpha, it is actually measured in the counterclockwise direction. Okay, so it's going to be cosine of or minus. It's going to be minus sine alpha.
So, but
sorry. This is a global, local y-axis, and global x-axis. Sorry. So this location is cosine of angle between local y-axis, global x-axis. Local y-axis, global x-axis. What is that angle? It's going to be 90 plus alpha. It's going to be 90 plus alpha, cosine of 90 plus alpha. That is minus sine alpha. This location, you see, this is the row which we are looking at. What I'm saying is this location is cosine of this, cosine of angle between this and global x-axis. Sorry, whatever I told you previously. It's not angle between local y-axis, global y-axis. This location is that. This location is cosine of angle between local y-axis, global y-axis. So that is how you need to remember this. That's why this matrix is called matrix consisting of direction cosines. Okay. Because I don't know how you remember this. It's always confusing to me whether minus should be here or minus should be here. So to avoid that confusion, you write this vector, local x-axis, local y-axis, global x-axis, global y-axis. Then this is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis, global x-axis. This is nothing but cosine of angle between local x-axis, global y-axis. This is nothing but angle between cosine of angle between local y-axis, global x-axis. This is cosine of angle between local y-axis, global y-axis. Okay? Any questions here? Any questions? So that is how you can write this relation. In your high school, you must have studied in a different way. Maybe you must have studied in this manner, but it is confusing whether you are always, it's like, you need to, or you may get confused whether negative is this for this or for this. So to avoid that confusion, remember in terms of direction cosines, you will not have that problem. So anyway, this here it is written in terms of, instead of cosine, wherever 90 plus alpha, cosine of 90 plus alpha, cosine of 90 minus alpha, they are replaced with minus sine alpha plus sine alpha. Anyway, that is how you get this relation. One more thing is, displacements and forces also get transformed from local coordinate system to the global coordinate system in the same manner. The transformation matrix for displacement and forces also is going to be same. That you need to keep in mind. Once you have all that information, how to get this alpha, or how do I get this cosine of alpha, sine of alpha? It all coming from the geometry of the problem. It all comes from the how this truss element is, what is its first coordinate or first node coordinate, what is its second node coordinate, with respect to the global coordinate system. So with respect to the global coordinate system, what is the location of this node 1, what is the location of this node 2? If you know those two locations, you can easily find what is the length of this bar element, what is cos alpha, what is sine alpha, and get this entire transformation matrix. Once you get this transformation matrix, what did I say? Displacements and forces also get transformed in the same manner. So D1, so wherever small x is there, replace with the D1. D1 is nothing but displacement at node 1 in the local coordinate system. D1, and here global x-axis, global y, global x, global y, replace them with U1, V1. Global x you replace with U1, global y you replace with V1. So D1 is given by cosine, or instead of always writing as cosine alpha, you can write it in a compact notation. Let's call this as C and this as S. So D1 is equal to C times U1, S times V1. So that is what is written here. And locally there is no displacement perpendicular to x-axis. Locally there is no displacement perpendicular to local x-axis. So this is not going to come into picture. And what about D2? D2 is the local displacement at node 2. That is going to be C times U2 plus S times V2. That is what is written. D1, D2 together they are written. And this is nothing but local displacement vector. This is global displacement vector. Local displacement vector is denoted by appending D or subscript, keeping a subscript for D, L, local displacement vector. And whatever this matrix that you got, that is denoted with its T, transformation matrix. So this is the relation. Local displacement to the global displacement is related to this through this T. Please see this peculiarity of this T, transformation matrix. Transformation matrix T is a rectangular matrix. It's not a square matrix. So if I want to find inverse of it, if I want to find inverse of this T, what is the inverse relation here? D is equal to T inverse DL. How do you take inverse of a rectangular matrix? It's not possible. It's not possible to take inverse of a rectangular matrix. But there is a special property associated with this T. T matrix is orthogonal matrix. T matrix is orthogonal matrix. What do you mean by orthogonal? T transpose or T times T transpose. T times T transpose is going to be identity matrix. T is, what is the dimension of T here? 2 rows, 4 columns. 2 rows, 4 columns. T transpose is going to be 4 rows, 2 columns. When you take T, when you multiply T with T transpose, you are going to get 2 by 2 matrix, and you are going to get it as 2 by 2 identity matrix. So please check it. It's based on simple trigonometric rule that cos square alpha plus sin square alpha is equal to 1. You try that, okay? So T is a orthogonal matrix. The property of orthogonal matrix is T transpose is going to be same as T inverse. So if I want inverse relation, D is equal to T transpose DL. Similarly, forces are going to get transformed in the same manner. So force, local force vector, which is P1, P2, local force vector, which is P1, P2, and global force vector, which is F1x, F1y, F2x, F2y. They are related by the same transformation matrix. So wherever D is there, replace with R. RL is equal to T times R. If you want in terms of R is equal to T transpose RL, because T is orthogonal matrix. Okay, I hope that explanation is clear to you. So now we have this relation KL DL is equal to RL. Just now we found a relation DL is equal to T transpose D. RL you can keep as it is, or RL you can write it as T times R. Okay, so let's take this one. KL DL is equal to RL. That is written in the other way. RL is equal to KL times DL. DL is replaced with T times D. Multiplying on both sides with T transpose. Multiplying on both sides with T transpose. T transpose RL is going to be R. T transpose RL is going to be R. That is what is written. Okay. So finally this equation becomes T transpose KLT. T transpose KLT times D is equal to R. You know what is T transformation matrix? CS transformation matrix is CS0000 CS. So once you know transformation matrix, you know what is KL. KL is EA over L 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. And KL is 2 by 2 matrix. T transpose is T transpose is T is 2 rows 4 columns. T transpose is going to be 4 rows 2 columns. So T transpose is 4 by 2. T transpose is 4 by 2. KL is 2 by 2. T is 2 by 4. So 4 by 2, 2 by 2, 2 by 4. If you multiply, you are going to get 4 by 4 matrix. And what is D? D is U1, V1, U2, V2. What is R? F1x, F1y, F2x, F2y. So assemble the element equations. For each of the element, depending on its orientation with respect to the global axis, and get the element equations, assemble the global equations, apply the boundary conditions, solve for the unknowns, solve for u1, v1, u2, v2, or whatever. Okay. And once you get the local displacements, once you get the global displacements, u's and v's, you go back and get the local displacements. You use the inverse relation. That's the reason I emphasized here. If I know the global displacement, how do I get the local displacements? Use this relation. You got the global displacements. Use this relation, get the local displacements. Once you get the local displacements, you can easily find strains, stresses, axial force in each of the members. And one more thing. How do I remember this very easily? How do I remember? Actually, if you go back to your structural analysis, a matrix analysis of structures, and you compare whatever the equation that you get for a truss element, you exactly same equation you will see in matrix analysis of structures. Okay? How do I remember this matrix, 4 by 4 matrix? You remember only this portion. C square, SC, SC, S square. Please note that this is a diagonal matrix. Okay? Off diagonal terms are going to be like, you know, at 1, 2 location is going to be same as 2, 1 location. So remember this top corner. Remember this top corner. C square, S times C, S times C, S square. If you remember this top corner, you can write the entire matrix. Whatever top corner here is there, you copy that here. And whatever you copied here, you copy it to this side and put append with a negative sign and copy the same thing to here. So that is how you can remember this matrix very easily. Okay? So if you remember this portion, that is enough. Okay, any questions? So once we got this, now given any problem, you decide the node numbers, assemble the element equations for each of the element. But you need to be very careful. You need to be careful on which node you are calling as local node 1, which node you are calling as local node 2 for each of the element. Because that is going to have an effect on your angle. Okay, that is going to have an effect on your angle. Here this is taken as local node 1, this is taken as local node 2. So local x-axis is going in the upward direction like this. So angle between local x-axis, global x-axis is theta. Suppose if I take this as node 1, this as node 2, this one, let's say I have taken as node 1, this I am going to take as node 2, then local axis is going to be in this direction, pointing in this direction. Then what is going to be this theta? Theta is going to be from here, counterclockwise direction all the way here. Okay? So you should be very careful how you are taking your local, or which node you are calling as your local node 1, which node you are calling as local node 2 for each of the elements. So that is the reason for this particular problem. It is clearly noted. It's clearly noted. Element 1 from node 1 to node 2. It's not going from node 2 to node 1. It's going from node 1 to node 2. Element 2 going from node 1 to node 3. So once you get the local element equations, you assemble, get the global equation system. Get the global equation system. And then apply the boundary conditions. What are the boundary conditions? They come from the physics of the problem. node, this location is numbered as node 2, this is numbered as node 3. Global node 2, global node 3. So all the displacements corresponding to this node are 0 because it is fixed, it's hinged, it cannot move, this point cannot move, this point also cannot move. So all the displacements corresponding to this point are displacement along x-axis and y-axis, global x-axis, global y-axis. They are 0. Here also they are 0. So apply those conditions. And also, since these are hinge locations, obviously you are going to have some reactions there. Obviously, you are going to have some reactions. So that is what I mentioned. Whenever you restrain displacement, to some value, it's not necessarily 0. Not necessarily 0. Whenever you apply some restriction on the displacement, reaction is going to be developed. So wherever you apply 0 displacements or some other displacement, non-zero also. In this particular problem, it's going to be 0. So whenever you apply displacement condition at any node, reaction is going to be developed. So here at node 2, both the displacements are 0. Node 3, both displacements are 0. Corresponding locations, reactions are going to be developed. So those locations, the values are U2 is equated to 0, V2, U3 is equated to 0, V3 is equated to 0. Corresponding locations, reactions are going to be there. So now you got the global equation system. You need to do partitioning of this, and then you need to do partitioning of it. How do you do partitioning of this equation system? You need to partition in this manner. Do partitioning of equations, solve for the unknowns. Okay. So when you do partitioning of equations, this matrix, this 2 by 2 multiplied by U1 V1 plus this rectangular matrix multiplied by this is equal to this one. So anyway, these are all 0, so that vanishes. So the reduced, this is what is called reduced equation system. Reduced equation system is going to be 2 by 2, solve for the unknowns U1 V1. Once you get U1 V1, okay, you go to this here, go to element equations, you substitute U1 value, V1 value, U2 is 0, V2 is 0. U2 is 0, V2 is 0. Okay. Substitute U1 value, V1 value here. And once U2, V2 are zeros, okay, at those locations, reactions are going to be developed. You can easily find, you can solve and find U2, V2. Or once you get U1, V1, you can go back to this relation. Now what you got? U1, V1, U2, V2 are 0. For this element, let's say it's element 1. For element 1, you know what is cos alpha, what is sin alpha. Use this relation and find D1, D2 for element 1. Find D1, D2 for element 1. And then determine the strain in that element, stress in that element, axial force in that element. Same exercise you need to repeat for element 2. Element 2 is going from node 1 to node 3. Node 1 to node 3. So here in this equation, it's going to be U1 V1, U3 V3. U3 V3. For element 2, what is cos alpha? What is sin alpha? Substitute and determine what is local displacement for local displacement at both nodes for element 2, and determine strains, stresses, axial force for element 2. And this entire exercise of determining these strains, stresses, axial force. When you are determining this strain, stress, axial force after getting the global displacements. After getting global displacements, you are going to get the local displacements. Using local displacements, you are doing all this. So this is all called post-processing. First, after getting the solution, which are displacement, you are doing some processing, post-processing. Post in the sense, post-analysis. After the analysis, you are processing those displacement and trying to get the strain, stresses, and axial force. Okay, so that is all. What is once you get U1, V1 for each element, all those calculation details are given, and automatically this sign, if your strain sign is positive, that means it is tensile strain. If strain sign that you get is negative, it's going to be compressive strain. Once a strain is tensile or compressive, stress and forces are also going to be having same sign. If strain is compressive, stress is also going to be compressive. Axial force is also going to be compressive. Similarly, if strain is positive, it's going to be tensile strain. Stress is going to be tensile stress. Axial force is going to be tension. Okay, so please take it. Anyway, this is example. You can cross check this calculation. Please take a note of this value here. Please take a note of this value. It is tension. So whatever force that is applied, because of that, element 1 is in tension, element 2 is in compression. That is what results are showing. Is it making sense? Whether this solution is making sense or not? Let's see. This is a two-element truss problem, plain truss consisting of 2 elements, and you are applying load like this. This load is applied, inclined load is applied in this direction. Just see what we got. Element 1 is in tension, element 2 is in compression. Is it making sense? Is it making sense? In fact, it's going to be that way. So the solution is making sense. So that is how you need to verify. Whatever you get solution from finite element analysis, you need to cross check whether really it is in compliance with the physics of the problem or not. Okay. Any questions here? Any questions? And please note that this force is applied inclined, so this also need to be resolved along global x-axis, global y-axis before you substitute. That is what is done here. Force at node 1, in the local, force at node 1 along local or global x-axis, force at node 1 along global y-axis. Just see whether this sign is correct or not. You do that when you resolve this force, along x-axis, global x-axis is going to be acting in the opposite direction to the global x-axis, so it's going to be negative. And when you resolve along the global y-axis, it's going to act in the same direction as global y-axis, so it is positive. So that's why negative sign is appended for the x component and positive sign is there for the y component. Any questions? Everything is clear? You need to attempt an example, okay? One more thing. I told you repeatedly, you should be very careful when you are numbering the nodes, and you should be intelligent when you are numbering the nodes. You should be intelligent when you are numbering the nodes. Why? I will tell you one thing. Okay. So now you see here, you assemble the element equations, element 1 equations, element 2 equations, and once you got element equations, based on the element connectivity, you got the global equations. Okay? You got the global equations. Is it required to assemble this global equation system? Is it required to assemble this global equation system? Can I not directly write this reduced equation system? Because what is happening is, wherever displacement is zero, wherever displacement is zero, the corresponding location in the global equation system. Okay, suppose here, this location, what is the location in this vector? What is this location? One of you tell me, what is this location? Are you there? What is this location? Nobody is responding.
U2.
U2, sir.
Not U2, not that. I'm asking position. It is 3. Okay? It is position 3. So, when this location is 0, when the third position value is 0, corresponding row and column gets eliminated. So, 3, third row, third column in the global stiffness matrix gets eliminated. Fourth row, fourth column is going to get eliminated. Fifth row, fifth column is going to get eliminated. Sixth row, sixth column is going to get eliminated. Or I can say all the rows and columns from 3 to 6, all the rows and columns from 3 to 6 gets eliminated. Or if you get the global equation system, you remove all the rows 3 to 6, all the columns 3 to 6, whatever is left out, that is going to be a reduced equation system. So you really don't need to assemble this. If these displacements are 0, you don't really need to do this assembly. One more thing. What is local node 1? What is local node 1 for element 1? One of you. What is local node 1 for element 1? What is global node 1? Global node number for element 1, which is first node. It is 1. For element 2 also locally, node 1 is its first node. Okay? You agree with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I told you when you are solving plane truss problems, ith node contribution goes into 2i minus 1 and 2i locations. 2i minus 1, 2i rows and columns in the global equation system. Okay? Ith node contribution for plane truss problems goes into 2i minus 1, 2i rows and column locations in the global equation system. So now node 1, this is node 1, where its contribution goes into the global equation system. Its contribution goes into 1, 2 rows and columns. It's going to be, its contribution is going to go into locations 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2. So once again, come back here. So for element 1, this is local node 1. For element 2 also, this is local node 1. So, and all other nodes are, their displacements are fixed. All other node displacements are fixed. So finally, I'm going to get a global equation system which is having 2 by 2 only, because only one node is free to move. All other nodes are fixed. So finally, I'm going to get a global or reduced equation system having 2 by 2 because this is a plain truss problem. And how can I directly get that reduced equation system? How can I directly get that reduced equation system? Because for both these elements, this is local node 1. So you just see this one, this portion. This portion you need to focus. Local or node 1 contribution in element 1 will be here, and local node 1 contribution in this is going to be here in this location. Okay, so if you add these two, you please add these two, this matrix 151.2 plus 0, 201.6 plus 0, 201.6 plus 0, 268.8 plus 787.5. Only this quantity you add, only these two quantities you add, just quickly add them together, and rest of them are all zeros. If you add them together, and that is what you are going to have in the globals, in the reduced equation system. If you number the node numbers intelligently, you always keep the common node, such a way for all the elements, it's going to be, for all the elements, that common node is its first node. For all the elements, that common node should be the first node. Then in the reduced equation system, this is the location where you need to look at. And that you can easily get it by looking at this corner for each of the elements. Even if I have, here in this example, only 2 elements are there. Even if I have hundreds of elements, let's say I have a lot of elements radially going. Let me quickly show you. Maybe it takes time to draw that. Let's say I have this kind of thing. So now you will understand what is the beauty of this finite element method, okay? And if you want to solve this kind of problem using your structural analysis approaches, it's going to be taking a lot of time. You see, I have like this, I have a plain truss, okay? This is one member, this is another member, another. I can have hundreds of members. All these points are fixed. All these points are fixed. And I'm applying a load here. That load need not be in any direction, it can be any direction, and I'm going to resolve it, okay? All the other nodes are fixed. And how do I get the orientation of each of these elements? I define global coordinate system, I get the orientation of each of these elements, I get the alpha value for each of these elements, I assemble the element equations for each of these elements, okay? And now all these points are fixed. So the corresponding rows and columns of all these points are going to be eliminated in the reduced equation system. For this problem also, whatever I have drawn here, for this also, the reduced equation system is going to be only 2 by 2 because this is a plain truss, because this is the only point which can move. It's going to be 2 by 2. And how do I directly get that? How do I directly get that reduced equation system? For each of the element, I need to see this corner. Add all those corners. Add for all those elements, top 2 by 2 corner. You add them together and then get the contribution. And then what is this load vector? It depends on how you are applying the load here. How you are applying the load. And if you want to solve the same problem using your structural analysis approach, what is the indeterminacy of this? What is the indeterminacy of this? Okay? And it's very difficult. Whereas in finite element, you can easily solve. Any questions here? So you should be intelligent when you are numbering the nodes. You make sure whatever common node is there, common point for all the elements, whatever is there, either you number it. Let's say instead of numbering this as node 1 or this one as a local node for all the elements, okay, instead of numbering this node as local node for all the elements, let's say I numbered this as local node 2 for all the elements. Local, let's say this is this node is local node 2 for all the elements. Then I need to look at this corner. So the point I want to make is, don't mix up. For one element, let's say this is local node 1. For second element, don't say that is the other one is local node 1. Don't mix up. You be consistent. Either either you keep the common point for all the elements as local node 1 or local node 2. Then you need to look at only this corner or this corner. Please note that when you have this corner or this corner, both our values are same. Anyway, think about it. Okay, think about it. We'll discuss further. And once this plane truss problems are very clear to you, the space truss is nothing but the truss element which is coming out of the plane of the board. So now, instead locally, it's going to be having only one coordinate, local x-axis, but globally it's going to have 3 coordinates, x, y, and z, capital X, capital Y, capital Z. What is the relation between local coordinate system and global coordinate system? It's going to be same, direction cosines. So here locally you have small x, small y. For 3D trusses, you are going to have small z, capital X, capital Y, capital Z. Again, direction cosine, whatever explanation that I gave you, this location is going to be cosine of angle between this and this, cosine of angle between this and this, and you have one more element, cosine of angle between local x-axis and global z-axis. Similarly, you can fill. You are going to get this transformation matrix instead of 2 by 2. There you are going to get 3 by 3. And to determine length of the element, here you have x2 minus x1 whole square, y2 minus y1 whole square. There you are going to get plus z2 minus z1 whole square. And here you have defined something like this. There we are going to use some other notation. Okay. So let's see that quickly. Let's see 3D trusses. It's very simple. Okay. So the direction cosines looks like this. And they are denoted with Lx, Mx, Nx, Ly, My, Ny, Lz, Mz, Nz. Anyway, we don't need to bother about these elements. This Ly, My, Ny, Lz, Mz, Nz, we will not use them. Only the first one, or this Lx, Mx, Nx only will be using. Because this element, this bar element, locally it has only small x-axis. For completeness, we define small y, small z axis, but in reality, they are not there. Okay. Let me complete within 1 minute. Okay. And this is the relation. That's why once you understand for plane trusses, you can easily extend for 3D trusses. And these are called direction cosines. Lx, Mx, Nx are called direction cosines. They can be calculated like this. And once you have this is nothing but your transformation matrix. Whatever you learn for plane trusses, same is applicable. Only thing is this T now is going to be, T now is 2 rows, 6 columns. T transpose is going to be 6 rows, 2 columns. And KL is 2 by 2. T is 2 by 6. So 6 by 2, 2 by 2, 2 by 6. So you are going to get finally 6 by 6 matrix. How do you remember this matrix? It's very easy to remember. Lx, Lx square, Lx mx, Lx nx, mx square, mx nx, nx square. If you remember this, or what is this component here? Here it's nothing but mx lx. Here it's going to be nx lx. It's going to be here it's going to be nx lx. Here it's going to be nx mx. Once you remember this corner, you can reproduce this entire thing. For each of the element in the 3D truss problem, assemble these element equations. So get the global equation system, solve the global equation system, get the local displacement values, solve for stresses, strains, and forces. The force expression is directly given here. And here also you should be intelligent in numbering the nodes. So here 3D truss example is given. Even here only for the illustration purpose, only 3 elements are shown. But if you have n number of elements which are all connected to a common point, all the except the common point, all other nodes displacements are 0. Finally, the reduced equation system that you get for even this 3D trusses is going to be 3 by 3. Finally, you are going to get 3 by 3 equation system. And you need to solve the displacements at the common node and then get the element forces, element strains, element stresses, and element forces. Once you get the forces, you just see whether they are going to make sense or not. Okay? So with this, I'm going to stop here. Let's continue in tomorrow's class. If you have any questions, let's discuss in tomorrow's class. Let me take attendance.